Greetings. Let's talk. One of the more interesting phrases I think I have ever encountered in my research and my reading in the SCA is that of noblesse oblige or noblesse oblige, depending on how you want to pronounce it. At its core, it literally translates to either the noble's obligation or the obligation of the nobility, depending on how you want to parse the words out. Now, the actual literal phrase is medieval French, and the term itself, we really see it kind of form up as a almost a regulatory statement in the 13th, 14th, 15th, into the 16th century in Europe. But it has persevered and has changed since then, and the idea of it existed long before. Working backwards, noblesse oblige has appeared in modern media. As a matter of fact, it appears in it's one of the lines in a song in the Disney 1960s film Mary Poppins. Go look that up. Actually, it's really cool because the line that it shows up in the song. The song is "The Life I Lead," where all the characters are kind of introducing the roles that they fulfill in society. The line that noblesse oblige is used in really is a very good modern summary of how we use the phrase and how we apply it. Now, of course, when you get back to the Middle Ages, it's a much more functional mandate. There is, of course, some of the altruism of lifting up your fellow man and helping to make the world a better place. But also, keep in mind that in a monarchy government, the nobility are central to its function. And again, there's nuance depending on which kingdom you're talking about in history. But the nobility have roles they have to fill. They have things they have to do, or the government doesn't function. Everything from collecting taxes to raising an army to trade relationships with neighbors to sanctions to all of that. The crown cannot work in the absence of support of his nobles. They have to provide their part of the equation. So noblesse oblige in a true medieval sense of the word is far more pragmatic and functional than the more modern altruism of lifting up our fellow man. I'll get to the definition in a second. But you also see the idea of rank and privilege coming with responsibility mentioned in the Gospels. It's mentioned, I believe it's Mark, that talks about the responsibility of rank and the responsibility of station. And it's even mentioned as far back as Homer's Iliad. So this idea of rank bearing with it responsibilities is a long-standing one. And being the SCA, being that we are pre-1600s, ostensibly medieval historical reenactors or researchers or whatever phrase we want to use, I wanted to talk for a minute about noblesse oblige and how it applies to you and I here in the SCA. So first of all, what is noblesse oblige? It is the idea that with rank comes the responsibility of being even-handed, just, and supporting and uplifting our fellow man. It's a very modern interpretation of that. Like I said, the actual medieval interpretation of that was far more pragmatic, and it was said through the lens of a monarchy government with a monarchical worldview. And even when you look into the Gospels and the Iliad, again, you have to account for the social structure and the worldview of the people in those narratives. So you can't simply say that there's one definition throughout history. But there is a common theme that runs through all of that. And that is this idea of rank having responsibility to it. And the SCA obviously gravitates towards the more modern interpretation, the more fanciful or romantic interpretation of it. But noblesse oblige is the obligation of the nobility to uphold, uplift, support, and advocate for their fellow man. Or, excuse me, their fellow player, to use the most modern parlance for this. And in summary, what all of us need to take away from that is the product, or rather the principle of noblesse oblige, is that for anyone who is of any rank in the SCA, pretty much when you get your award of arms, let's start there, because that really is the first step in true rank in the SCA. You should do everything within your powers to advocate for, uplift, and protect the people around you. Now, obviously, protect from what? Well, protect them from themselves, maybe. Keep them from burning themselves out, keep them from getting discouraged. That's simply a matter of being there for them, supporting them. How do you advocate for them? Well, for one thing, you can fill out award recommendations. There's a nice, solid first step. But also making sure that local leadership knows about the good things people do. Most people I know in the SCA, for all the things they're good at, they suck at self-advocacy. They do not talk about themselves. They do not... a lot of the work they do, they are the last person to talk about it, which, I mean, depending on how you view the situation, that could be good or bad, but for a society where we have meritorious awards, knowing people are doing good things is kind of important if we want to keep that ecosystem going and get people recognized for the good works they do. And part of the idea of noblesse oblige for all of us is, if you see someone doing something good, make sure your seneschal, the local peers, the nobility know about that. And also, being an overall positive influence to the environment around you. And that can be as simple as not talking about the discouraging stuff a disproportionate amount of the time. And it can also be as methodical and planned out as... I would even go so far as to say that when you agree to take on an event, actually running an event, being the event steward for an event, putting the extra energy in to make sure the people who are working under you are enjoying themselves, are part of the process, making the experience positive for everyone. That falls under the idea of noblesse oblige, because that is, in a direct respect, uplifting and advocating for and advancing the people around you. Now, let's take a step back, because we are using the word nobles a lot, or noblesse a lot, the nobility. And the SCA has nobility. So does that mean that everything is the same and we just kind of use nobility as a catch-all phrase for this example? And the answer is no. I've talked about landed nobility in another video, but suffice it to say here, in order to become landed nobility, you are interviewed and frankly scrutinized by the crown, and you are selected as either one or two of a group of candidates to be the royal representative for a local group. And in Odstiora, that can be a number of years that you sit on those local thrones before you step down. A court nobility is a award. It's part of the grant. In our kingdom, it's part of the grant level awards. Other kingdoms handle it differently, but ours is part of the grant level awards. However, it's kind of a special grant because even though it's part of the grant tier, it automatically outranks all other grants. I've had my Star of Merit for a number of years now, and I have a friend who just received her court barony. She's now a baroness, and she automatically outranks me, even though I've had my grant for longer than she has. Hers is a court barony, so she outranks me. Um, in both scenarios, however, it doesn't matter how you become a noble in our kingdom. In both scenarios, nobility is awarded to someone who has pretty much by function of what they have accomplished, they know the SCA at a deeper level than anyone who's only been in 1 or 2 years will. Now, as to how you specifically get your nobility, you want an interesting conversation, go on social media, go on your kingdom's Facebook page and ask, so what does it take to get a court barony from the kingdom? Because I know that's Steve, that's always an interesting conversation. It really is kind of hard to nail down a specific set of requirements. But if you listen to the overall conversation, what you hear is a very high level of play supporting the noble idea, supporting the crown, and you hear echoes of noblesse oblige, of uplifting your fellow man, of advocating for your fellow player, of supporting the SCA. You don't get to that level of play without a lot of time and energy invested in the game. So what that effectively means, even though there's not a written requirement for this, what that effectively means is that if you are nobility in the SCA, or at least non Stiora, you inherently have a higher level of knowledge and experience than the average of the group around you. Now, are there other players who probably know more and have been playing longer and may even have more influence or prestige? Yes, absolutely. That's what we have the peerages. A peer is going to outrank everyone else in the room except for a landed noble or the royalty. That's the way the system is set up. But if you're a court noble, yes, you are below the peerages, but you're only one step below the peerages. You are still, you've been in probably longer and have probably had more time working with the royal court, working with the noble courts, supporting the leadership, supporting the populace, writing award recommendations. Now, there's just an overwhelming chance that if you are a court noble in this kingdom, you will be elbow to elbow with the inner workings of how the kingdom works at multiple levels. You will have firsthand experience that took you years to accumulate and would take someone else years to accumulate. And what that means is that in a more strict and narrow reading of noblesse oblige, you as a noble within this kingdom have a higher duty to leverage your superior knowledge, your superior experience, to better advocate for the people around you, to better represent the people around you, to better protect, to better uplift, to better to better influence. And what does that mean for you, the new player? I'm sitting here talking about players who probably don't need a video about this. Well, two parts on that. First, let's go ahead and laugh. One of my favorite memes right now is the one where Jack Sparrow is holding a mug of rum, going, "Quit telling me to act my age. I've never been this old before." And there's truth to that. It's I don't know how to act my age. I've never been this age before. And the same is true for all the ranks in the SCA. When you tell someone that, would you act your rank, or ask them, how are you supposed, you're a baroness now. What does that mean? They'll be the first to tell you, I don't know. I've never been a baron or baroness before. It's new to them. So part of this is to just raise the overall body of knowledge about noblesse oblige, what that means, and to kind of give to give everyone who's watching this video some direction about, you know, what nobility can include in its responsibilities and the rights and responsibilities in your charter. But also understand that the nobility, if you're a new player, if you're a first year player or a fresh in the door player, or, you know, 2-3 years in or whatever, the nobility, whether they be landed or court, can be some of your best resources to advocate for and counsel on how to make your game better, how to make someone else's game better, how to, you know, if a whole bunch of you are trying to decide, hey, how do we get this person an award? You know what? I mean, yes, I'm always going to tell you start with your local landed nobles or talk with, you know, find a peer. But the fact of the matter is that you can't go wrong by asking a couple of court nobles. If your group has a court baron or court baroness in there, they're an excellent resource to talk to about, hey, how do we get this person this award, or what award should we get this person, or this person really wants to do this and we aren't sure how to help them do that. You know, the nobility, that is one of the excellent resources you can go to, and it's one we don't talk about that much, which is why I really wanted to make this video. At the end of the day, it's not a hard and fast rule. There is no piece of paper in someone's filing cabinet that says the court nobles of my kingdom must do X. That list doesn't exist. We play a game and we have an ideal we work towards, and that ideal is ill-defined, and how we work toward it is even more ill-defined. And yes, as a protocol herald like I am, protocol and voice herald like I am, that gray area, that fuzziness makes me twitch every time I think about it. But even still, even through all that, having a codified term, having noblesse oblige as a phrase that we can say to each other and say to ourselves, I feel like is a good waypoint, a good compass point that we as players can use to help better our game, to help guide how do we want to put energy into our game going forward, because uplifting and representing and advocating for the people around us is always a good idea. And also, don't forget the noblesse part of this, our noblesse part of this. The nobility are some of the senior players in this game, are some of the veteran players who know more, have been around the block, have been there, done that. And we don't talk about them that much. They're not a phrase or a term that comes up that much in conversation when compared to the peerages. So I want to shine a little light there and both give them credit for being the awesome people that they are, but also point out that they are a phenomenal resource. And if you are a noble, yes, I'm also nudging you and saying that, hey, you have these resources. Part of your rank is the responsibility of using them to continue to improve the game. So that's what I want to talk about. I thank you very much for listening and joining me. If you have any comments or feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But until then, till next time, I'll see you at the next event. Goodbye, and God bless.